Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to build an economic machine right from scratch. And using just a few simple rules, we'll see exactly how one person's spending becomes another person's income, creating this amazing ripple effect that shapes our entire world. So let's start with a really big question. What's more important for the economy, our plans or our actions? Does a company's plan to invest matter more than what it actually invests? It seems like a small difference, but trust me, it's the absolute key to understanding how this whole economic machine really works. To get a handle on this, economists use these two Latin terms. On the left, you see ex ante. All that means is before the event. It's the plan. It's what we all intend to do. Then on the right, there's ex post, or after the event. That's the result, what we actually did. And that gap, the space between the plan and the result, well, that's where all the economic drama happens. To see how this all plays out, we're going to build a simple model of the economy, just step by step. We'll start with that gap between plans and reality, then build our spending machine with households and firms. After that, we'll find out where the economy balances, see how tiny changes can create huge ripple effects, and we'll finish up with a really surprising paradox about saving money. Okay, let's dive right in. Imagine a company plans to add, say, 100 cars to its inventory this year. That's their ex ante investment. But what if demand is way higher than they expected and they end up selling 30 of those cars from their existing stock? Well, their actual ex post inventory increase is only 70. See? It's that difference between the plan and the result that forces the economy to adjust. All right, so our simple economic machine, it's got just two main parts. Households, people like you and me who consume things, and firms, which make investments in new equipment and buildings. Their spending plans are basically the gears that make this whole system turn. Let's start with households. We can actually describe their spending habits with a really powerful little formula called the consumption function. It says that total consumption, C, is just made up of two pieces. First, you've got C bar, which is what we call autonomous spending. That's the amount people spend no matter what, even if they have zero income. Think of it as dipping into savings. The second part is C times Y. That's just a specific fraction of their total income. And if you look at it on a graph, it's just this upward sloping line. That makes sense, right? As income goes up, people spend more. But look closely at the starting point. The line doesn't begin at zero. That spot on the vertical axis, that's our autonomous consumption, the essential spending that happens even when there's no income, paid for by savings or maybe borrowing. Now, to make this totally clear, let's just imagine a country. We'll call it Imagania. Their consumption function is C equals 100 plus 0.8 times Y. So what does that mean? It means as a country they spend a baseline of 100 no matter what, that's their autonomous consumption, and then for every single extra dollar of income they get, they spend 80 cents of it. And that number, that zero point 0.8, it is the secret ingredient to our entire economic machine. It's called the marginal propensity to consume, or MPC for short. It's just the fraction of each new dollar that gets spent. So a high MPC means people are quick to spend any extra cash they get. A low MPC, they're probably going to save it. This one number, it drives everything that happens next. Okay, on to our second player, firms. Now, just to keep things simple for now, we're going to assume their investment plans are fixed. They just decide, hey, we're going to invest $50, and that decision doesn't change no matter what the national income is. We call this autonomous investment. All right, time for the assembly phase. We've got our two main gears, the spending plans from households and the investment plans from firms. Now let's put them together and see where those plans crash into the reality of what the economy can actually produce. So first, we combine those two plans. We take that household consumption line we saw earlier, and we just add the fixed amount of firm investment right on top of it. This new, higher line, that's our aggregate demand. It shows us the total planned spending in the economy at every single level of income. Next up, we need a line to represent the economy's total output, or aggregate supply. And in this model, we use this really elegant 45-degree line. Why? Well, because every single point on this line represents a perfect balance, a point where total economic output is exactly equal to total national income. It's basically our line of perfect balance. And this is the magic moment, where that planned spending line crosses the total output line. Right there at point E, that's our economic equilibrium. This is the one and only level of national income where what people plan to spend is a perfect match for what the economy is actually producing.
ex ante equals ex post. The plan matches the result. Beautiful.
So, our machine is built. It's balanced. Now for the fun part. Let's kick the tires a little and see what happens when things change. This is where we can start asking some really powerful what-if questions.
So let's imagine a little shock to the system. What if, all of a sudden, firms get this burst of optimism and they decide to increase their planned investment by just $10? What does that do to the entire economy?
Now, your first instinct is probably to say, well, the economy grows by 10 bucks. But that's not what happens at all. Instead, what we get is this powerful chain reaction that economists call the multiplier effect. That initial change in spending just gets amplified as it ripples through the whole economy. So here's how that chain reaction actually works. That first $10 of investment, it becomes $10 of income for someone. And remember our MPC of 0.8? Well, they spend 80% of that, which is $8. That $8 then becomes income for somebody else, who in turn spends 80% of that, which is $6.40. You see, the process keeps going. And even though each round of spending gets smaller, it's still adding to the total. Now, each round is smaller than the last, yeah? But when you add it all up, that initial $10 injection of investment actually multiplies to become $50 of new economic activity. So the really crucial point here is that a small change in plans can lead to a much, much bigger change in the final result. And understanding this multiplier effect, it leads us to one of the most surprising, totally counterintuitive ideas in all of economics. I mean, it's a concept that seems to go against everything we're taught about being smart with our money. It's called the paradox of thrift. And basically, it says that if everyone in the economy decides to get more thrifty, to save a bigger chunk of their income, the total amount of savings in the economy might not go up at all. In fact, it might even go down. How on earth is that possible? Well, let's go back to our machine. If everyone decides to save more, that just means they're spending less of each new dollar. In other words, the marginal propensity to consume, our secret ingredient, goes down. And when that happens, our whole aggregate demand line gets flatter and swings downwards. It ends up crossing the supply line at a new and much lower equilibrium point. And this table just shows the shocking result. Let's say our MPC drops from 0.8 down to 0.5. Look what happens. The whole economy shrinks dramatically. Total income falls from 250 all the way down to 100. And here's the punchline. Even though every single person is trying to save a larger percentage of their income, because total income is now so much lower, the total dollar amount of savings in the economy is exactly the same as it was before. So this simple little model, it reveals this deep, fascinating tension, doesn't it? What's a good, virtuous choice for an individual, saving more money, can actually have a pretty negative result for the entire economy. And it leaves us with this really tough question. If my responsible decision to save, when multiplied by millions of other people, can actually shrink the economy, how do we balance our own financial health with the health of the system we all depend on?